Prime Minister's questions had quite the impact yesterday as it resumed, and it's clear that the aftermath has been extensive. In today's video, we're not going to focus on the Prime Minister being verbally thrashed, nor are we going to delve into his dodging of questions about proposed tax increases. Instead, we're going to break down the critical error he made during his address that the internet quickly picked up on, revealing that he wasn't entirely truthful. As always, we'll walk you through this issue while also discussing the most recent news from across the nation. But first, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and become a part of our rapidly growing community. Yesterday's Prime Minister's questions saw opposition leader Keir Starmer pressed hard regarding the future of the Falkland Islands, following Britain's decision to hand over control of the Chose Islands to Macus. Liberal Democrat leader Ed Davey asked the Prime Minister to guarantee that British citizens fishing off the Falklands can continue to proudly sail under the Union Jack. Starmer responded immediately, saying that his uncle had nearly lost his life during the Falklands War when his ship was sunk defending the islands. Starmer firmly stated, "They are British, and they will stay British. It's personal to me." But these remarks caused a lot of confusion. No British ships were sunk during the conflict. The only vessel hit by a torpedo was Argentina's Belgrano. Naturally, the internet responded quickly, demanding that Starmer explain this claim. This incident caps off a rough week for the Labour Party and Starmer, as their lead in the polls has shrunk to a razor-thin margin. Recent polling data reveals Labour now sits just 1 point ahead of the Conservatives. According to a survey conducted by More in Common for Politico, Labour is polling at 29%, with the Conservatives trailing closely at 28%. Reform UK has secured 19%, while the Liberal Democrats are polling at 11%. The Green Party sits at 7%, with the SNP registering a meager 2%. Only 3 months ago, Labour held a commanding lead of nearly 20 points over the Conservatives as they entered the general election. This latest polling follows weeks of turmoil within the Labour Party after their historic election win, along with increasing scrutiny over gifts given to the Prime Minister and other senior members of the cabinet. There are also growing concerns that the government has lost control of its own agenda. According to recent data from YouGov, Keir Starmer is now as unpopular as Nigel Farage, with net favorability scores showing Starmer at -36, Farage at -35, and Rishi Sunak at -42. This paints a grim picture for Starmer as he chairs his first cabinet meeting on Tuesday, following a comprehensive shakeup of his embattled Downing Street team. Meanwhile, in other news, Lee Anderson has claimed that the majority of genuine Conservatives have left the Tory party for Reform UK. Anderson's remarks come as Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch gear up to make their cases to Tory members, having secured enough support from MPs to reach the final stage of the Tory leadership contest. Speaking in an interview, Anderson said it would be interesting to see how Tory members cast their votes. Anderson, who defected from the Conservatives to join Reform UK earlier this year, said that many true Conservatives have followed suit. The membership has probably changed drastically over the last year or so, especially with Reform UK gaining momentum, he said. Anderson went on to predict that Kemi Badenoch has a good chance of winning the leadership race. "I think Robert Jenrick has been more transparent and is speaking a language that aligns with our reform movement," he added. When asked whether Badenoch winning would negatively impact Reform UK, Anderson insisted he wasn't worried about what the Conservatives have to offer. "I think the Conservative Party is a spent force," he said. Anderson also expressed disappointment that James Cleverly didn't win the leadership contest, adding, "If Cleverly had won, I would have been in Parliament for another 20 years. Reform UK received 14% of the vote in July's general election, securing a small presence in Parliament with 5 MPs. Party leader Nigel Farage has praised the party's growth in recent months, noting that membership is increasing steadily. Anderson also stated that many of those joining Reform UK at the grassroots level were previously members of the Conservative Party. In other developments, Chancellor Rachel Reeves has come in an interview. Pensioner Susan Mensforth described the move as utterly unfair, explaining that many pensioners who no longer qualify for the benefit are living in poverty. Mensforth, 79, told host Patrick Christys that the government's threshold for eligibility is set far too low. There are people on pension credit who are already struggling, but many others who are just above the threshold are also living in poverty, she said. Mensforth went on to warn that with rising energy prices, pensioners will be forced to choose between heating and eating this winter. The Pensions and Lifetime Savings Association estimates that a person needs a minimum of £4,400 per year to survive on, yet many pensioners just above the pension credit limit are finding it impossible to make ends meet. Mensforth, who lives in Buxton, North Derbyshire, where temperatures can plummet to minus 10 degrees Celsius in winter, believes the Labour government could be held responsible for a rise in excess deaths caused by pensioners freezing in their homes. I believe in fighting for justice, Mensforth said. At my age, you can't rely on exercise to keep warm, and the result's going to be more deaths this winter. She added that organizations like Silver Voices, the National Pensioners Convention, and Age UK have been campaigning on behalf of older people terrified about how they will make it through the winter months. Mensforth also revealed that she has had to cut back on essentials since her winter fuel payment was slashed. Many people across Britain will be forced to choose between heating their homes or buying food, she said. I've had to cut back on luxuries, but others are having to give up essentials just to get by. As the situation worsens, donations to charities supporting the elderly are pouring in. A Just Giving page set up by Patrick Christie's to raise funds for Friends of the Elderly has already brought in over £226,000. So what are your thoughts on everything we've discussed today? With so much happening across the country, our community is the place to stay informed and engaged. Thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you in the next video.